This is Praise Moment. I'm Sister Bev. We're going to go again to Psalm 23, verse 1, the most famous psalm that David ever wrote. We're still singing songs based on this psalm. People love this psalm. Verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Now, David grew up being a shepherd. He knew everything about being a shepherd because that's what he did, all the while singing psalms of praise to God. But his buddy Asaph, who also wrote some of the psalms, in fact, Asaph wrote, if you look starting about Psalm 73 going through 83, these are all psalms of Asaph, and he has his own favorite words, his own way of looking at things, his own themes that he loves to write about. Asaph was not a shepherd. Asaph was a musician. In fact, Asaph was a drummer, and he was the leader of the band. David was from Judah. Asaph was from Levi. He was the Levite. Asaph was the Nasa, that is the leader of the band, the musician to whom David entrusted psalm after psalm after psalm. In the NIV, it would always say, for the director of music. In the ESV, it says, for the choir master. This is his buddy Asaph. This is the one he was entrusting. He didn't just entrust his songs to anybody to sing or to produce and make it sound great among the Levitical choirs and musicians. So Asaph was a musician, not a shepherd, but he understood something about shepherds because he was buddy-buddy with David, his friend David, his colleague David. So he understood something about shepherds. And in Psalm 77, verse 20, so that was written by Asaph, he says, you, the Lord, you led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So now today, if you are a leader of people, so you might be a Go Group leader or a ministry leader, you have to get this, that God, the great shepherd of the sheep, he's still leading his flock, but by your hand. Take a look at your hand. He's using your hand. He's leading his flock. He's tending his flock. He's taking care of his flock by your hand. You cannot say you are a shepherd and you don't tend the flock. You cannot say you are a leader of the people of God and not tend to his flock and take care of them. So he is the great shepherd, but our hands are used to tend the flock. Now, let's look at another psalm of Asaph where he talks about shepherding as well. And that is the next one, Psalm 78. In Psalm 78, starting in verse 68, it says, but he chose the tribe of Judah. So that is the Lord choosing Judah. From Judah, the rulers would come. He chose a people. When God looks to do a great work and he wants to impact something on earth, he chooses a people. He looks for a people. And remember in John how it says, you have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and appointed you that you might bear fruit that remains. Okay, so God chooses a people. It says he chose the tribe of Judah. Mount Zion, which he loved, he built the sanctuary like the heights, like the earth that he established forever. And then in verse 70, it says he chose David, his servant. So first, God chooses a people, and then he chooses a leader, a king, a warrior. He chooses a servant, somebody who will serve those people. Isn't that beautiful? It doesn't say he chose David, because David was a king. David was a warrior. It could have, Asaph knew this. He could have said, he chose David the king to lead these people. That would have seemed logical to human beings, but to the Lord's way of looking at it, he chose a people, and then he chose a servant to lead those people, someone who would really be a servant-hearted person. He took him from the sheep pens, from tending the sheep, he brought him to be the shepherd of his people. So he brought him not to show up on the weekends and be a pastor, but all through the week he's doing his own thing. If you are going to be something, then that's who you are. If you're going to be a Christian, you're a Christian. You're a Christian all the time. If you're going to be the shepherd of people, then that's what you are. It's who you are all the time. You're there for the people. And then it says in verse 72, and David shepherded them with integrity of heart, with skillful hands, he led them. You know, I love this because Asaph was David's buddy. He knew him. He worked with him. They worked side by side. They were colleagues. David would, I know what it's like when you write a song and then you entrust it to the musicians and you work it through. It takes time. You don't just hand them a piece of paper and say, here's a song. You work it through. It's very, you're together. You know, the Asaph and David, they knew each other. They knew, and Asaph knew David. He worked with him day after day. He knew what David was like. And he could say, honestly, David is shepherding these people with integrity and with skill. Those two things, with integrity and with skill. Integrity of heart and skillful hands. I love that. I love that whole passage about shepherding the people. And I want to say, the Lord is my shepherd. And as someone then who leads people, I want, like Asaph said David did, I want to shepherd, I want to lead people, I want to tend to people, I want to be there for people with integrity of heart and with skillful hands. And that is true for every one of us who is a leader of God's people. Amen.